outside of the will of God. If you say that, then you run the risk of saying, well, then God caused the sin and the tragedy and everything that happened. And we know that's not so either. So there's just that fine line between the causative and the permissive will of God. Certainly sin and tragedy falls into the permissive will of God, and our eternal salvation is certainly would fall into the category of the causative will of God. It's very good, Brother Trevor. We're going to look at a text taken from 1 Peter chapter 5. It's a favorite of mine. It just seems to be on my mind this morning, so we'll follow that direction. He speaks to a lot of different people in this chapter, very short chapter, but he does say a lot in a little bit of space. It says, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. So, what he says is that the younger ought to submit ourselves unto the older. No one likes that word submit. No one likes to be in subject or to put ourselves in subjection to someone else's authority. But as far as the Lord is concerned, old people have a little bit of authority over young people. It's the way that the Lord designed it. And the older I get, the more I like that. I used to not like that, but I do like that. Do you know that I've been told, I haven't experienced it, but I've been told that in this country, young people used to have deference for old people. They used to hold doors open. They used to carry their groceries for them. They used to go out of their way to help old people. And if an old person started speaking, even if they were saying something crazy, people listened to them because often old people do say things that are crazy. They're not quite as sharp as they used to be, and they get things mixed up, and they can't remember whose name and who was what and when they were there and who said what, and they start saying nutty things. But younger people are under an obligation to at least listen to what they have to say, as nutty as it might get sometimes. And I do love speaking to old people. They are treasures. But he says, young people, submit yourselves unto the elder, all of you being subject one to another. As far as Christianity is concerned, as discipleship is concerned, and the church of the Lord Jesus Christ is concerned, we've all made, and I don't know if you realize this, maybe I hope I've done a good job of teaching you this, but if I haven't, forgive me. But we've all made a commitment to one another. If you're a member of Tired Creek Primitive Baptist Church, or you're a baptized believer in good standing in a Primitive Baptist Church, you have made a commitment to everyone else that's made the same commitment, that you will be in subjection to their authority over you. And we don't like to say that somebody else has got authority over me, but it works out something like this. If you've got a problem, an obvious problem, let's just pick an easy one. Let's pick one that everybody knows. You've got a problem with substance abuse, and everybody knows that you've got a problem with substance abuse. And I, your brother in Christ, come to you and tell you you've got a problem with substance abuse. Your reaction should not be, who are you to tell me what I've got a problem with and don't have a problem with, and I'll do whatever I please. Your reaction ought to be, thank you for telling me. Thank you for telling me. You're right. Thank you for caring enough to tell me that I've got a problem. What can I do about it? I've been struggling about it. What can I do about it? You tell me what to do. And by the way, this person in this little scenario shouldn't always be Brother John. You have the authority to go to each other when there's obviously a problem, when there is a break in some sort of liveliness. There's a break in discipleship, an obvious break in discipleship. And call it like you see it. Of course, you do it with the truth and love, but that's really not That's not the tenor of this. The tenor of this is the receiver of that information ought to humble themselves enough to be able to listen to correction from time to time. That's what we all signed up for. And believe me, some of you are not bashful about correcting Brother John. And I appreciate every one of you, all of the times that I've misspoken in the pulpit, and you've all told me about it. I appreciate all that correction. Makes me a stronger preacher, so thank you so much. But we need to humble ourselves in front of each other. And then he says, if you've lost vision about why you should humble yourself, he says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God. So it's not so much that brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so is so much better than you that they could come to you and tell you what mistake you're making. Is it that they're a messenger from the Lord? That perhaps the Lord put that person in your life to tell you what you need to hear, and you need to see that as an intervention from God Himself. And that you humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, meaning that if you don't humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, then what comes after you not being able to humble yourself under the mighty hand of God is the mighty hand of God. And once the mighty hand of God gets a hold of you, you will be humbled. I think Jonah found out, our young brother mentioned Jonah this morning. Before Jonah left on his trip, he was not a very humble man. I think when you catch up to him after he gets spit up on the beach, he's a much more humble man than he was before he spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a fish, or a whale of a fish. However you want to say it, it's okay with me. I just know he spent 3 days and 3 nights in the stomach of some sort of sea creature, and it wasn't pleasant. And when he got back, what was he? He was more humble, and he did whatever the Lord wanted him to do. But I think if we talked to Jonah, he could say, I would have rather not learned the lesson that way. I would have rather just humbled myself before it got there. I would have rather just listened to the Lord and gone and preached to the Ninevites, and then that's His business, even though I didn't want to. I should have just done what He asked me to do and not been so arrogant about it, think that I could run away from God, because you can't. So he says, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due season. For the Lord giveth grace to the humble, but He resisteth the proud. I'm going to illustrate, we've talked about Jonah, but that was not my intention to illustrate this with Jonah. Let me tell you about something else. In the book of Esther, Esther is a young Jewish lady, and the Jewish people are under the judgment of God, and they're living in captivity. They're not living in Jerusalem and Judea, but they're living in captivity in a foreign land. And the king picks out Esther to be his bride. She becomes Queen Esther, as she's spoken about in the Bible. And she has a relative by the name of Mordecai. Mordecai and her are very close. And the Jewish people are bondsmen. They are slaves, literally slaves. And Mordecai is also picked out, and I believe he becomes part of the king's council. And there's some jealousy there between the home folks, the home team, and the people that have just come in, the Jewish people. And there's this one in particular fellow by the name of Haman. And Haman has it out for Mordecai for a long time. And Haman decides that he's going to plot and get Mordecai killed. So that's what he does. He gets the king to make a decree that everyone should bow to him, Mordecai. And Haman. And he knows that Mordecai is not going to bow down to him, because he would see that as idol worship. He would see that as worshiping a man or worshiping a false god. He just knows that Mordecai is not going to bow down to Haman. But the king doesn't know what the intention is. He just, Haman talks a good talk and convinces the king to pass the decree. So he does. He walks out into the street, and sure enough, Mordecai does not bow down to him when it's time to bow down. And it's just playing out just so beautiful for Haman. And Haman goes home, and the king just keeps on heaping Haman with honor, and he keeps on heaping Haman with riches and position. And Haman keeps bragging about it and getting lifted up with pride. And the more proud that he is, the more excited he is that all of his dreams are about to come true. And he says, I tell you what, king, he says, there's somebody out in the streets right now that will not bow down. You made a decree. Remember, you did that. That was your decree, king. Oh, king, I love you so much. And I wouldn't have anybody go against your commandment. And this guy, there's this one in particular fellow out there. He just won't bow down when it's time to bow down. Why don't we do this? Why don't we punish him and everybody that's related to him, kill them all? I mean, we just need to kill his whole family. I think he's a bad seed. He's just going to pollute the whole area. He's going to pollute the minds and the hearts of children everywhere, and we just need to kill him. And of course, the king doesn't have any idea who Haman's talking about or who he's related to. He says, that's a fine idea. Let's kill them all. And of course, Mordecai finds out about it, and he's very sad. And he tells Esther, Esther, you got to do something about this. Every last Jew in this kingdom is going to die. If you don't do something about it, you got to talk to the king. And interesting thing, I love this. In the background, while all this is going on, Esther decides the best way to get the king's attention is to invite the king to a banquet. And so she makes preparations for a giant feast. And she's going to put on her queenly robes, and she's going to put on her royal attire to make sure that the king remembers that she is indeed the queen. In the meantime, the king can't sleep. And there was one little bit of this story that I didn't tell you yet. When Mordecai, once, long before this, Mordecai found out that there was two of the king's courtiers that were planning on assassinating him while he slept. And Mordecai uncovered the plot and saved the king's life. Went and told some folks, and they saved the king's life. Nothing was ever done for Mordecai. It was forgotten about. It was just kind of happened in the day of the life of the king. The king went about his business, and nobody said anything about it, and nothing was ever done. And while all this is going on, the banquet's being prepared, and Haman's plotting against Mordecai. Mordecai knows he's about to be executed, and everybody's related to. All of the Jewish people are about to be executed. While that's all going on, the king can't sleep one night. And he gets up in the middle of the night and he says, bring me the history, bring me the law history, all of the history that's been written about my kingdom. I'd like to read about myself. You know, kings love to read about themselves. So he gets the book out and he starts reading, and he reads about that little plot that was against him. And Mordecai saving his life. And he goes, you know, I forgot about all that. Was anything ever done for this guy? Was anything ever done for Mordecai? They said, no, nothing was ever done for Mordecai. He says, we got to do something for Mordecai. This is incredible. So the next day he gets up and he says, hey, Haman. Y'all remember Haman, who wants to kill Mordecai? He says, hey, Haman, you're the best guy. You're the wisest guy I know. He says, let me tell you this story. There's a fella I want to honor. And he's done something wonderful for me. And I just can't thank him enough. And I just can't think about what I should do for him. And of course, because Haman is proud, he thinks he's talking about Haman. So he's going to pad his own nest. He says, I'll tell you what you do for that guy. He says, give him your horse to ride on through the streets. Put your robe and crown on him. Put your ring on him. And I want you to parade him through the streets and have everybody just shout and scream and celebrate and give him as much silver and a bunch of changes of clothes and just heap all kinds of riches and honor on him and just make him king for a day, basically. Just make him king for a day. Give him your authority, give him your horse, give him your ring, give him your robe, give him your crown. Just give him everything you've got, and that'll be just good enough. And the king says, you know, that's a wonderful idea. Go get Mordecai, put my robe on him, put my ring on him, and I want you to lead the horse through the street. Don't you know? That made Haman very angry. And that's exactly what happens. Then the feast happens. And Haman goes to the feast with the king. And the king says, after 2 days of feasting, the king says to Esther, You're my queen, and I love you, and this has been a marvelous party and a wonderful time. You just tell me what you want. I'll give you half of my kingdom. I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. You're just a wonderful lady. She says, well, king, my people, my family, it's okay that we were sold into slavery. I didn't say anything. I've never asked you to set free my people. But we're your slaves. All of my people are your slaves, and that's fine. But now you want to kill us all. Somebody wants to kill us all. And we're all going to be killed. And I don't want to die, and I don't want my people to die. How about do something about that? The king says, what are you talking about? If you're reading between the lines, this is the conversation. What are you talking about? I'm not going to... Oh, yes, you are. That guy standing next to you, he's plotting to kill us all. And he is going to get you to make a decree to kill us all. And it's going to be his fault that I'm dead in a few days because I'm part of the family of Mordecai. I'm related to Mordecai. And if you kill Mordecai and his family, you'll have to kill me too. Of course, the king is incensed. And in the meantime, Haman had made gallows. He was so giddy that he was going to get to kill Mordecai after this feast. It made him so mad that he had to lead him through the streets on the king's horse, that he built a gallows because he was going to make sure that it happened. The next day he was going to get hung, him and his family. And the king says, why don't we do this, Haman? Why don't we hang you and all your family on the gallows that you built for Mordecai? And that's exactly what happened. Interesting how the Lord works, isn't it? Interesting how the providential hand of God leads to humbling. Interesting how people's plans don't always go the way they think they're going to go. And what you think you're in control of, you're not quite in control of. Humbling yourselves under the mighty hand of God means that God doesn't have to do it for you. You don't humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, then He's giving you a warning. He will humble you. He does resist the proud with His presence. The sacrifices of God are a broken and a contrite heart. Why does He put it that way? The sacrifices of God. Those are the ones that get God's attention. The sacrifices of God. He's not pleased with bulls. He's not pleased with cows and calves and sheep and all of the rest. This is in the Old Testament when all that was told to them that was acceptable. What He says is truly acceptable in the sight of God. The sacrifices of God are a broken and a contrite heart. And He would dwell with him that had a broken heart. Why does He say that there's sacrifices involved in a broken and a contrite heart? Because to have a broken and a contrite heart, you've got to sacrifice all of your pride. You've got to kill all of your pride. And it's got to die. Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God that He may exalt you in due season. Mordecai was everything. It was anything but proud. He was a humble man. And God exalted him in due season. And of course, He humbled Haman under the mighty hand of God. This next verse is curious. He says, casting all your care upon Him, for He careth for you. Now, how in the world is that connected to humbling ourselves, of being humble, staying humble? I find we feel like we've got to just control just about everything. We feel like we've got to direct it. We've got to say where we're going to go and what we're going to do. We are in control. We are going to direct our lives. And not only are we going to direct our lives, we're going to direct the lives of other people. I love people that do that. We can't even direct our own lives, much less the lives of each other. But we're going to direct our life, and we're going to direct every step that I take and every step that they take and every step that these people take over here. We're going to do just like Haman. We're going to get it all arranged just like like we want it to be arranged. We're going to manipulate and guide and listen. Why? Because we're afraid of the outcome. We're afraid of what might come next. We're afraid that something may happen to us adverse that we don't want to happen. So therefore, we've got to control all the variables and the outcome. And I'm telling you, we were never in control of the variables or the outcome. The Lord's in control of the variables and the outcome. And you need to cast all of your care about the outcome on the Lord. He says, casting all your care upon Him, for He careth for you. Why would we do that? Because we've humbled ourselves enough to allow Him to be in control of the outcome and for Him to be in control of the variables. We've seated in our mind that we're allowed. We're not really allowed. We don't allow the Lord to do anything. Maybe that's not the right verbiage. But we are submitting ourselves to the Lord and saying to Him, you direct my path. You direct my steps. You tell me where to put my next foot, where to put my next step, where my foot should go. You tell me what the outcome's going to be, and whatever the outcome is, I'll live with it if it's your will. Nevertheless, thy will be done. That's the prayer we ought to be praying instead of, Lord, I've got this, and this plan. Will you bless it, please? Instead of that prayer, it's, Lord, what would you have me to plan? And after you've told me and revealed to me what you'd have me to plan, wilt you bless the outcome? Nevertheless, thy will be done. And I'm going to, it's scary, Lord, but I'm going to take the next step by faith. I'm not going to live by sight. I'm going to take the next step by faith. You know, the Bible does say whatsoever is not of faith is sin. If we are not living by faith, we are living in sin. I hate to put it that way because I'm guilty of it myself. It is difficult to live by faith. It's only difficult to live by faith because we're proud. We've got a lot of pride. We haven't humbled ourselves and said, the Lord knows what He's doing. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but the Lord knows what He's doing, and I'm going to trust Him. I'm going to trust Him for the income. I'm going to trust Him for the outcome. I'm going to trust Him for the input and the output. I'm going to trust the Lord knows what He's doing. The Lord knows my life better than I know my own life. The Lord knows where I should put my feet and where I should go and who I should talk to and who I shouldn't talk to. Lord, just guide me. Casting all your care upon Him, for He careth for you. I like to think that the Lord cares about me and He cares about you. I know this is quite obvious, but it bears repeating, otherwise it wouldn't be in the Bible so much, because it's in there a lot. We said it last weekend. We're going to keep on saying it. If you hear me quote it again, you'll just know that I intended on it. I intend on quoting this over and over and over and over. He that spared not his own Son, how shall He not freely with Him give you all things? It's in Romans chapter 8. And if He be for us, who can be against us? Who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that died, yea, that is risen again, who is at the right hand of the throne of God. He tells us in the book of Romans, I'm just quoting now, tells us from the 8th chapter of the book of Romans, that He spared not His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all, that He might with Him freely give us all things. We stand in need of a lot of things. We stand in need of patience. We stand in need of guidance. We stand in need of providential care. We stand in need of protection. I think about sleep a lot. I don't think any of us, I think if we focused on how vulnerable we are when we sleep, I think that we would all be very, very scared people. But do you understand how vulnerable we all are when we're asleep? We are incredibly vulnerable. It is a dangerous time. There's all kinds of things that could happen to you while you sleep. And yet you're here this morning. You woke up again. You didn't die in your sleep. Nobody attacked you in your sleep. Nobody came in your house and took anything from you while you were asleep. And I know there's probably somebody listening out there. There's a chance that happened to you, and I'm sorry. But nobody in this building that happened to. We get to worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. What's the next step and the third and the fourth step. And I believe we should plan. It's ignorant not to plan. But those plans always are with the Lord's blessing and guidance. And Lord, guide me to make these plans. And if they don't work out the way I'm thinking to work out, bless me to be flexible enough to move along with your will when it's revealed to me. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is concrete. Our lives are not predestined to be the way they are. If God sacrificed, killed, tortured, maimed, bloodied, beat, and punished His own Son to keep you from getting what He poured out on His own Son, why should we be in any doubt if He will take care of us here in time? That He wouldn't look out for us, that He wouldn't have our best interest at heart, that He wouldn't keep His promise to be our Father, which the word means protector. Why would we ever doubt if our Heavenly Father had our best interest in heart? Will He let us go through pain? Of course He will. Will He let us be chastised? Of course He will. But does He always have our best interest in heart? Absolutely. He spared not His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all, which means He tortured and killed His only begotten Son, the second person of the Godhead, Jesus Christ, and put on Him things that would have been put on you had it not been for the sacrifice of His Son. That alone ought to convince you that you have a Heavenly Father that loves and cares for you. And humility is in your best interest. Humility before God is in your best interest. And whether you've got to teach it to yourself or whether He's got to teach it to you, you're going to be taught humility. I recommend that we do it Mordecai's way and not Haman's way. Would y'all agree with that? I recommend that we not have to learn humility. Now, there's a lot of imagery. I'm just speaking for the book of Esther. I recommend that we not hang on our own gallows that we've built for someone else. I recommend that we not go down the path of Haman, but rather we go down the path of Mordecai. We let somebody else tell about our accomplishments. We let somebody else celebrate the things that we've done, if we've done anything. We just stay humble before our God and serve our God in humility. Let Him choose our changes, and Him choose our steps, and Him choose both the input and the output. Let Him guide where we're going to go and where we're going to be. We all got a 5 and 10 year plan, don't we? I think we'd be a lot better off if we pray, Lord, be with me in 5 years. Lord, direct my steps in 10 years. Lord, keep me here if it be Thy will for 20 more years. God bless me to live 150 more years. You know, I used to pray for a long life. I did, I'll be honest. The Lord's taught me to be more careful about what I pray for. Now I pray for a long life with lots of health and no physical problems. No physical or mental or financial problems, Lord. But nevertheless, Thy will be done. Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due season, casting all your care upon Him, for He careth for you. God bless you is my prayer. If there be one or more that would like to join with this church, you come while we sing Amazing Grace. Stand while we sing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved